The late veteran broadcaster Xolani Gwala is being remembered as a broadcasting industry giant. He died in a Johannesburg hospital this morning after a 2-year battle with cancer. Well, we're going to reflect on Xolani Gwala's illustrious career. In studio, I'm joined by Vincent Mfundisi, who was the executive producer of SABC1's current affairs show. You'd remember it, Asikhulume. And of course, Gwala anchored that particular show for 9 years. Also joining the conversation is Clement, Manyathela. He's, of course, with Eyewitness News and currently has been driving the Xolani Gwala show on Eyewitness News. So, gentlemen, let me thank you both for your time. It's been a very difficult day, and I think especially for the SABC and the EWN families, where Xolani really spent a lot of time in his career. Clement, perhaps let me begin with you. How have you received the news of his death?
Thank you. Nothing can ever prepare you for something like this, Cathy. We knew how sick he was, and we were warned late last week that it was getting worse, and we thought we are prepared. But I received the news before the family made the announcement, and it was just heartbreaking. The mood in the office at Prime Media 702 was just down the entire time. But also we took an opportunity to also say, let's just celebrate him for what he would have loved us to do, because he was quite a bubbly person. And he would have wanted us to, if you will, the show to go on. So it was heartbreaking, but we had to keep it moving.
Absolutely. And, many of us, I remember especially, I used to watch Asikhulume, even though the bulk of it was in isiZulu, and back then I didn't even understand a word. But I enjoyed current affairs, and that was my first interaction, seeing Xolani Gwala on air and growing up just watching that show. As the man who was behind the scenes with him and driving the show and bringing it to millions of South Africans, what is it like today to hear that he's gone?
Well, when I got the news at about 6:30 this morning, my radio is playing throughout. So 6:30, and it was on 702. Then I got this news. I didn't believe it. But when the producers of the show kept on talking about it, then it sank a bit. I was shocked. But I knew that Xolani was not himself for a long time. And I remember the last time he was on television, I can't remember which channel, where he was explaining exactly the extent of his illness. And I only spoke to him once. He actually called. But I didn't know that he was sick. And he never even indicated to me that, look, I'm pulling hard. But his interest in me was that, look, I want that black book of yours. Can we work together? I've got this current affairs show, but I can't get what I want the way I want it. Can you help me with that black book? Then I said to him, look, let's arrange. I'll look at it. I've got 3 of them. So you tell me what you want. Once we meet, then you choose what you want, and then we'll start working together. But when I get the news this morning, it was a shock. At the same time, it was not a shock when I remembered what I heard and watched on television about the extent of his illness.
What was it like working with him all those years ago, when it was still earlier in his career? He was by then well recognized, but certainly I think his notoriety only grew much bigger as the years went by.
When I met him in the newsroom, when he moved from KZN to Johannesburg, we were first in the 24-hour news, the very first one. We were together there when he left EWN and joined the SABC. The first thing that I picked up was that voice. I used to call it a velvet voice.
Absolutely.
I said to him, you're supposed to be a singer with this voice. And, but I didn't stay for long with that channel. I was invited by the SABC One
Sure.
people. They told me that we've got this idea. Because you have been working with, there was a program that was like that one called Newsline that was in the early 90s. It also had a huge number of viewership. They said, we want you to get somebody to work with. And the first person I thought about it was him.
Why was he your guy? What
Because
about
of
him
that
made
voice.
him stick out? Yeah.
Because of that voice.
Yeah.
I like the voice. And this guy was very good with his language, both isiZulu and English. And this is the kind of person that they wanted for the show. And I read the profile of the show. I said, but this guy fits here. But the editor then of Current Affairs, Temam Tembu, was said to me, okay, you can bring your own guy, but there is a particular guy that I want. But if you insist on this one, then he fails, then you are in trouble.
Well, it's a good thing you never had to see that day, right? It's a good thing it never had to come.
Yeah.
Clement, you describe him as a mentor, and obviously having to step into his show knowing full well that he's not doing okay, but at the same time, he's just there's such big shoes to fill, right? Speak to us about the kind of conversations you would have with him and just the ease of being able to do what you needed to do.
Look, he was a consummate professional. He was one of the most humblest people I've ever met, who are so incredible at what they do, yet they're so calm. I felt the pressure, Cathy, I don't want to lie. Every single time I did that show, the Xolani Gwala show, the first 5 calls, you would think people are already reacting to the show that you're doing and the content you're providing. No, they're calling to ask, how's Xolani? Where is he? Literally every single day, we would get about 5-8 calls every time the show starts, and people are genuinely concerned about where he is. We used to have many conversations. There was a time when he had to go to Israel earlier this year for treatment, and I used to talk to him almost 3 times a week because he had FOMO, if you will.
Yeah.
He would see on the news, on Twitter, that the State Capture Commission is burning, so I'd have to update him all the time, and he'll say, hey, I saw it was happening there, what happened? And I used to tell him of what was happening at the commission. If something was happening in the ANC, we'll talk about it. But he was just so amazing and so humble that he would also give you feedback and say, hey, I was listening. I like this. I'm not sure about this. And the humility of it all, when he interviewed the president earlier this year on the station, he came to me with a piece of paper and he said, okay, I'm going to interview the president. I want your advice. What do I need to do? And for me, that speaks to how humble he is. How do you tell someone you're mentoring that I think your input is so valuable for this project and this interview that I'm about to do? He was such a humble man. He loved news so much. Even when he was sick, he wanted to be kept up to date with what was happening. Yeah.
What has the industry lost today, Vincent, in the form of Xolani Gwala?
If it was in the army, I would say we have lost a general. Yeah. A general accounts for 10 soldiers, 1 man. That was the kind of a person Xolani was. He liked his job, and he would always try to be the best all the time. And again, the fact that he was bilingual, viewers liked that. Xolani will switch easily from isiZulu to English, just like that, easily. And you won't lose anything. If you understand the languages, both languages, you won't lose anything. This guy is actually keeping the momentum with the way he speaks. And the journalism fraternity has lost a great man, a man who was dedicated to his calling, because he was always on call. Colin was always ready.
Yeah. And absolutely took it very seriously.
Yeah, he took it very serious. Even a little story, just a little story, 5 minutes. Xolani will spend 2 days. I said, Xolani, but it's only 2. I've already prepared for you. He will take my scripts, organize everything for himself. I'll say to him, look, John, Colin, this is how we do things here. I look at the bigger picture of the story. This is the storyline. These are the points, these are the issues. When it comes to questions, it's up to you.
Sure.
Go and prepare. Colin will prepare from Wednesday. You can see this guy, we have prepared everything for him, but he still wants the best out of it.
Absolutely. And I think just in that, there are incredible lessons for a new generation of journalists. I wonder, what's the most important thing that you've learned from him?
Look, one of the things I've learned from him, Cathy, is that respect your profession, respect your guests. Every single broadcaster has their own style of conducting interviews, especially accountability interviews, when you're holding those in power to account. And what I learned from Xolani was that you can still be respectful towards your guest, respect your profession, and still ask the hard questions. And many of the politicians who've been reflecting on his life today have said, every time we got invited to his shows, we knew it was going to be hard because he's going to ask us hard questions and hold us to account. But we also knew that he wasn't bringing us because he wanted to appear as though he knows it all. And for me, that's a lesson that I'm taking from this great broadcaster, that respect the profession, respect your guests, and still hold them to account. It's possible to do all those three.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more with everything each and every one of you has said. I remember a couple of years back, we were at the Vuyombuli Memorial, and one of the things that Xolani was saying, we were sitting next to each other with Milton and Nkosi and having a good catch-up, and he's saying, you know, it's so remarkable seeing the outpouring of love and support just at Vuyo's passing, and, you know, he's just like, I wonder if he knew he was this big. And, you know, this morning, the one thing that has been ringing in my mind is saying, I wonder if Xolani Gwala knew that he was equally as incredible, as massive. And just this love from South Africa has been incredible. So.
And you know, I can tell you he's been appreciating that love. I think he's felt it. We used to be concerned because every time he would come, during his treatment this year, he would always come to the office to see us, to update some of us about how the treatment is going, what they're saying. And sometimes it wasn't great news, but the way he would deliver them to you with such positivity, and would end up thinking, but are you okay? No, I'm fine. And he was worried about us and the people around him and how they were receiving the news and the support that was coming through, outpouring. And it was never about himself. Even when he was suffering like that, Cathy, he would always think, are you guys okay? I'm worried about my kids, my family. And we were always thinking, we are thinking about you. Are you okay?
Yeah. Any final words, Ntate Vincent, very briefly?
Well, there is only one Xolani Gwala, unfortunately. We can't have another one. I see all the big TV shows when I'm free at home on pension, enjoying my pension. But I still want to see a Xolani Gwala show on TV. And you give him his freedom. That's what he liked most. Give him his freedom, help him to put the show together. He's going to prepare for that show. Yeah. The young journalists who still aspire to anchor shows must follow these footsteps of this great man.
Absolutely.
Because Xolani respected his job and his people that he worked with all the time. For my show, the very first day we started working, I said to him, look, for the 9 years that we worked on that show together, I'm there at 1 o'clock, it's an arrangement, every Sunday, and then he's there at 2 o'clock. We are in the studio an hour before, preparing. We know that we've prepared, but he would like to fine-tune everything.
Yeah.
I wish that somebody who's got intentions of being a good anchor follows this man's footsteps.
Absolutely.
And do the best.
a very high bar that he has set for all of us, I believe. Thank you both, gentlemen, for coming into studio tonight and for sharing your stories and your personal journey. Certainly my condolences to both of you, and of course condolences to Xolani Gwala's family and his wife and children, and of course his family at the various media houses that today are also mourning his death alongside with the nation.
That you're talking to us about this evening. But I just want to know from you, where do you think the loophole is? Why is it that these abuses continue regardless of the laws that we have in this country that seem to protect everybody across the board?
And of course, the argument is that if you look at issues of unemployment, poverty, inequality, in fact, they're on the rise, some argue. So is it still a new dawn?
Well, we are having to deal with problems that have been given to rise by a whole number of...
I'll tell you what, a bit of it also feels so surreal, just knowing that he's no longer going to be around, and that's Xolani Gwala. He will certainly be missed by all of us as South Africans and all of us as his colleagues in the media industry. So we'll continue here then with our bulletin. The first attempt to make provincial and municipal governments work together more effectively kicked off today. Gauteng Premier David Makhura hosted mayors to present improved ways of integration. Some mayors, however, failed to show up for that meeting. The meeting hoped to create stronger intergovernmental relations, improve service delivery, boost economic growth, and improve infrastructure in Gauteng. Newsroom Africa's Linda Mfundisi attended that gathering.
The City of Gold remains up for grabs. While that is the case, behind this closed door are talks to strengthen intergovernmental relations in Gauteng. And it didn't help that outgoing Mayor Herman Mashaba didn't attend, given that his municipality faces the risk of being placed under administration. The Gauteng Department of Cooperative Governance says this can only happen as a last resort.
I don't think it augurs well for intergovernmental relations and cooperative governance. Personally, I've had a discussion with him about 3 weeks back on the specific situation of Lenasia and the surrounding areas. As you know, there is a big problem there, and there's things we want the municipality to commit on so that we are able to resolve that situation. And there's many other projects like Alexandra, Kliptown, that will need the municipality to come to the party and be clear on what is it that it's going to do.
But it's not the only major metro facing woes. The city of Tshwane's long-standing water issues still hang like a dark cloud over the municipality. However, the mayor believes the city's been active in addressing the challenge.
The first phase we have already given the contractor side. It's a 290 million project that is going to be done from now up until the end of 2020. The second phase is going to be a 2 billion expansion of the wastewater treatment plant in Rooiwal. So this IGR meeting today will be able to assist to give us some funding to be able to deal with those.
The Auditor General's office previously slammed Gauteng municipalities for failing to plan. But Makhura believes strengthening intergovernmental relations will help the province improve service delivery.
One of the things we have agreed to do with the mayors, with you mayors, is that I'm going to chair an infrastructure and investment committee. If we want these things to happen, they can't be left to chairs. So we're now establishing one committee at the provincial level, which will be chaired by me, which will bring in specific MECs who are key in the infrastructure and investment space, and then bring every mayor. So we will work with, for every mayor, it is about unlocking everything in your corridor to give effect to our vision.
Gauteng is one of the few provinces in South Africa with opposition coalitions in charge of major metros. Whether this meeting has an impact remains to be seen. For Newsroom Africa on Channel 405, I'm Linda Mfundisi in Johannesburg.
All right, well, after the break, we're in conversation with the Johannesburg Metro Police. They've today released some statistics on crime that's happening in the Johannesburg area. And now much of those statistics have been broken down according to nationality. So while it has been widely well received, there are also questions around how it has been tabulated that are raising some eyebrows. We'll have that conversation shortly. You're live on News at Prime.